tongue country though, because that.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Progressive Queens. I'm joined by my co-panelist Kat, who is Princess today, and I'm joined by also Mickey. We're missing one person, but we're going to continue on. Ladies, wave hello to the camera and say hello. Hello, everybody. So
Hi,
we
everyone.
start off today with a couple of topics I wanted to talk about, and one of them is just recent. There is good news coming out of the 14th district of Georgia. It looks like someone is finally, I don't know how much of a chance she has, someone is finally going to run against our least favorite legislator, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Oh, Margarine.
Yes.
I call her Margarine because she's slimy and not good for you and artificial.
Isn't she the one in the GQP party?
I can't think of the lady's name, but I saw an interview with her and I bring it up and I can't think of her name. Who's the person running against her? And I'm like, okay, maybe, because I thought that Taylor went unopposed in the election. It turns out a Democrat ran against her, but he really didn't put up much of a campaign.
I believe he didn't get any money either. I don't believe there was any support from the DNC for him to run. And that's the thing is every race that they just ignore, just it leaves like stuff like this to like her to bubble up to the top, this diseased grease.
And now there's even reports of her disrupting committee meetings. And I'm like, look, y'all, I don't know if Congress has the power to get rid of her. They probably don't. That would be up to the voters. But something, I'm almost like, okay, I'll move to Georgia, 14th district, then I'll vote against her, and then I'll move back to Indiana because this is just ridiculous. How? It's like, wait a minute. So I'm glad that someone is finally running against her. I don't know if she has a chance in the sky of winning, but at least this lady seemed to be serious about taking her out. I'm like, good.
I just can't believe that a QAnon supporter, an open QAnon supporter, was elected. I can't wrap my mind around it. Trump opened the door and he's letting all the garbage in now.
Well, garbage reaps garbage, but
the thing is, it's the I always see it, and we go back to the discussions we've had on previous episodes. The Democrats make every effort to lose, like they literally don't put opposing people in some of these. It's a seat, and they don't even bother. Like, look at what happened here. Oh wow. Well, look what happened. Now we have two QAnon believers in Congress. We have Lauren Bobbitt and Marjorie. Right? And how did they get elected? Like, this is the thing is the Democrats, again, it's the Democrats or Republicans are paid to lose and just keep electing these talking heads that absolutely have no validity. And in regards to kicking her out, like the Republicans should be doing it, but they aren't. So
I wonder if the people, the Democrats running against those two, were progressives. If they were, the DNC won't back them if they are.
I've got a funny feeling there was something about that, Mickey. For some reason, with Margarine, especially, I think there was a possibility of a candidate, and basically it got ignored. I could be mistaken, but it was just.
The DNC would never ignore a progressive candidate.
They actively fight against them.
No, that's sarcasm, Mickey. I'm being.
I know. I know.
Oh my gosh, it's
like what y'all just really like. I'm just glad, like I said, I'm glad somebody is running against her. And if I think of her name, I will just blurt it out because I'm like, oh, that's her name, but I just can't think of her name right now. I saw an interview with her, so she doesn't seem too radical, but in that district, who knows? I mean, voters are a strange group of people anyway. Another thing I wanted to talk about was and Mickey, this is
Oh, got her name.
what's her
Well,
name?
you beat
Holly
me to it.
McCormack.
Spell her name for the audience.
Holly McCormack, 36.
And spell her last name so I can Google it.
Holly, and then MCCORMACK.
Okay.
And
Is she?
a second person is also running against her. A
Yeah,
man, Marcus Flowers.
yeah, I knew the man, but I watched the female interview. Is she Democrat or Republican?
Holly McCormack is the Democrat challenger. Her interest in public service has grown through her career as a small business owner in the insurance industry, especially during an eventful 2020. And she said issues that have stood out to her are social justice related and affordable health care after the state's response to the COVID-19 pandemic.
So that doesn't sound like a Medicare for all type of candidate to me.
No, it does not.
Marcus Flowers is also a Democrat. It doesn't say if he's progressive or not, but
I would say I would almost doubt it.
Yeah, but sometimes you get, boy, I hate to say sometimes you got to take the good with the bad and just be like, okay, well, get this one out of office. But I should have enough sense to know that pushing somebody to the left thing doesn't work because it's not working now. I wanted to talk about the 8 senators that decided that $15 minimum wage wasn't enough. I don't know what's wrong with these people. I figured that the Republicans were all going to vote against it. But for these 8, I knew Manchin was just because he's an idiot. I knew Sinema would because she's an idiot too. But the other 6, I'm like, wait a minute, why? And they haven't explained themselves. They haven't been held accountable by the media. Nothing's happening to them. How do these people live with themselves? Because I can't figure it out.
In their
something
palaces
to
in the
consider.
sky.
Something to consider in this. Since so many or most are corporate Dems, there's a possibility that the majority of the corporate Dems were against it. And they got together and decided, okay, who is going to vote against it, put themselves out there, and the rest of us can vote for it so we can pretend it wasn't us.
I wouldn't put that. I agree with possible scenario for Mickey. Is the thing is, I honestly think as the DNC, like the medium of the DNC, they all didn't want to vote against it, and exactly like Mickey said, they went, here, you guys be the sacrifices so we can make sure it doesn't pass, and onwards. And one of the things that we should also be looking for when we look at this is remember the Jimmy Dores and everybody going, force the vote, force the vote. Well, this is what force the vote results in. And this is what happened. Now we have a good example of it. And like Tracy mentioned, mainstream media isn't saying anything. In fact, the only thing I have seen is them attacking Bernie for actually putting forward the vote. And I'm thinking, really? Really? How is this Bernie's fault? He's trying to get the best for the American people that is possible. And somehow when he tries to do it, and we get to see the true colors, i.e. those Democratic senators that voted against it, all of a sudden it's Bernie's fault and Bernie shouldn't have done it. How about those 6 senators voted against Democratic policy? Because I remember quite clearly that $15 minimum bonus or pay raise, right, was actually in Biden's platform. It was like you had to stream down to the very bottom. I remember, I think I showed Mickey, I said, go look for it. You have to just keep pushing down on your computer. But it was there, the $15 minimum wage. So explain to me, so why is it the attack on these 6 people have not behaved by Democratic
Well,
policies.
that's just a tactic to attack
Yeah.
progressives. I mean, that's
Like,
just simply what it is. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Neil.
I said when Kamala did not override the parliamentarians' rule, and you didn't have to look far down on her platform to find 15. She screamed it loud and clear constantly, constantly. I said then they threw it down, they threw it on Bernie's shoulders.
Yeah.
Bernie took it, he caught it, he ran with it, and he tossed it right back on their shoulders. This way, they're going to blame Bernie. And I said this before, if it fails, it's Bernie's fault. If it
Yep.
passes, then Biden,
Biden.
Harris, Schumer, and Pelosi will be all over the airwaves saying, look what we got for you.
Exactly. It just makes me so disgusted at the way the media, especially they call themselves left media, they're not. But the way that progressives are attacked on this issue, we were the ones out here saying, hey, let's find an organization called Fight for 15. We were the ones out here campaigning and protesting and all this to even get to this point. And now you're just, I don't, because I'm so frustrated, I can't get my sentence together. How are they going to go home? Well, none of them are up for reelection, so I guess they don't have any. There's no immediate consequence for it. So I'm just so frustrated. I'm just literally frustrated with what's going on in DC. It just makes me sick.
Well, bringing in the Marjorie Taylor Greene discussion we had just a few seconds ago, is part of that. People are getting elected, and we've discussed this before in the Progressive Queens, and we see it all over the place. All these people are getting elected not on merit, not on past deeds, not on anything. We have politicians in Canada that enter politics at 20 and do absolutely nothing else. We had a leader of a party that was a copy boy at an insurance company. He hadn't achieved anything in life, but somehow he managed to become the leader of the Conservative Party. That he didn't own a business, he didn't do anything. And we keep allowing this sort of thing to happen. I'm not saying that we need to, there's a specific professional group, because there isn't. I personally think that our politics and and what's sitting in our government should be a variety of occupations, not these perpetual talking heads and these lawyers who essentially have gotten us into a large majority of the problems we have. And the argument that I always get pushback on is, oh, we need lawyers because we're writing laws. No, what you do is you get the skeleton of what you need. These are our policies. This is what we're doing. And then you hand it to the lawyers to write it up. And then you go through it, redline it. Yeah, this is what we meant to say. And then you present it. You don't go to the lawyers first, whose main goal is protect one's butt right off the hop, the little paper vampires that they are. And nothing gets done because of that, because you don't have any, and when we do have people that have decided to enter politics, and if they're of the corporate variety, mainstream media, of course, is going to help them. Why? Because they're also getting paid for the commercial time. For the corporation that's buying the politics is also buying commercial time on the mainstream media. Like it's just an exchange. And like, especially now, and we see it in the US, and now we're seeing it in Canada. Oh yeah, this week they're now hiring the PR groups, ex-politicians over into mainstream media. Like, seriously, journalism is tanking because everyone's ignoring what's truly happening. And that's the fact is, we don't have politicians, we have commercials. These people, I keep going back trying to find like commercial models, actors, and we're electing them. And that's because the corporation and the mainstream media going, aren't they a great, like, look at when Como was doing that stuff for New York.
Oh, he was great.
Painting him as the savior of New York. All of the media.
And the hate I got as I kept posting, telling these people, research his background.
Yeah.
He first of all, he took millions in donations from the nursing home industry.
Mhm.
After he took that money, he then passed a law to give them immunity against lawsuits against COVID. He had he sent the elderly to their deaths because there's no room in the hospitals. Why was there no room in the hospitals? Because for years he cut funding to the hospitals, and even in the middle of the pandemic, his new budget cut funding again. I
Mhm.
kept telling people that, and the hate I got was unbelievable.
It's
Unbelievable.
Yeah, this is why I
people don't
say
want the
blue.
truth.
Yeah, this is why I say blue MAGA is worse than red MAGA.
Yep.
Blue MAGA is just as idiotic. Yeah, I'm gonna say idiotic. Is red MAGA. It's the same. It's the same reason that literally makes no sense if you sat and thought about it. If you sat and looked at his record, first of all, his press conferences, he bored me to tears. His voice is terrible, and he's not exciting. I just didn't get like all the media upset. Like the media literally was propping him as a presidential candidate.
You know,
Are you serious?
even
Mhm.
now, they're talking about his cover up of the deaths. They're not talking about he caused those deaths. He's not talking about how he defunded hospitals for years. They're not even bringing that up, only that he covered up the deaths.
Yeah, it's
It
amazing.
we see the same thing in Canada. One of the things that we have the provincial right now, because we do our federal transfer dollars for budget, is coming up at the end of March, right? March 31st. And that's when our federal government does a dollar transfer to the health budgets of the provinces. And one thing that has been consistently going on here in Canada is the conservative provinces and some of the other ones that wouldn't label themselves conservative, the premiers, well, what they've been doing with the federal health dollars is they take the transfer payments and they put them into the provincial budget, which means that that goes into that big lump of pile of money, and they can utilize it for their pet projects. Doesn't have to do with healthcare. Pet projects, paying off their budget mistakes, because it's a guaranteed flow. If the federal government ever said, you know what, we're going to, cut, and they've tried to actually put rules on the transfer payments and say, no, this has to go directly for healthcare. This can't go anywhere else. But majority of the conservative provinces, great example, Alberta, used to have some of the best medical care in the world, did some of the most advanced surgeries, heart and lung surgeries back in the 80s. Like they were at the top notch. And throughout the years, it's dropped. And why is it dropped? They've reduced funding. They've taken similar to what happened in New York. You watched healthcare staff getting laid off before. It's a consistent. So even when we have healthcare in Canada, what we see the conservatives doing is taking the money for healthcare and using it elsewhere, and that is consistently happening across the board. And that's one of the things that, like Mickey, we need to look at this. We need to say, not only have these healthcare dollars be part of the budget, that's all they're to be used for. They aren't to be used for, Johnny's son came up with a really great idea. I think the government should invest in this and all this other crap that they use it for. It should be used for healthcare, and especially the healthcare of our seniors. Are we not supposed to judge this society on how they take care of their elderly and infirm?
I
Because if
would.
we are, then we're all starting to real fail bad.
Yeah. I think the thing that's making me so angry about the situation in New York, one, it can literally happen anywhere at any
Mm-hmm.
time.
Yep.
That literally could be Indiana where this is happening.
Yep.
It wouldn't even shock me if it were happening in Indiana. But the fact that his reasoning for covering up or whatever it is he wants to call it, it's so ridiculous to sit there and say, "Oh, I was afraid that the Department of Justice will investigate me." Well, you lied about the numbers. What do you think they're going to do? Um, hello.
Yeah.
I just
Hello, somebody.
exactly.
Literally.
Hello, somebody, because I'm like, you expect to do that and nobody say anything. Who is it that you think that you are that you can say things like that? And so
Well,
I know he's not going to
He's
step in.
family dynasty, same thing.
yeah.
His father was governor for God knows how many years. He's governor. He's been in New York. We know he's corrupt. He's an elitist. He's racist. A womanizer.
Misogynistic.
Wait a minute,
He's
I
a
didn't get the
womanizer.
racism. Wait a minute, backtrack. Where did the racism allegations come from?
Oh, he had no problem. It comes from the elitism. He had no problem forcing gentrification in black neighborhoods.
Oh boy, yeah. Mm.
He all but said it out loud that he wants to get rid of the poor in New York City. Who's he talking about?
Well, he's governor of the whole state, right?
Yeah, but New York City is the
The population.
Well,
yeah
yeah, that's true
the
too. 'Cause I don't think
population,
the
and that's his crown. New York City is his crown. As far as the state, what he does for us upstate, he doesn't even exist.
But I just wonder what, and this isn't even on the topic for discussion, but I wonder what is it going to take to make people angry enough to get in arms? What is it that we're going to just allow? I mean, we got QAnon politicians, we got politicians saying things like we shouldn't have a Martin Luther King Day. We have black politicians saying, "Oh, we don't need Black History." What is it going to take for the public to say, "You know what? I've had enough"?
First and foremost, we have to get money out of politics. Nothing is going to change. Nothing. No matter whether it's healthcare, whether it's racism, doesn't matter what it is. Until we get money out of politics, nothing is going to change.
And until we bring back some of the rules and regulations regarding media, because
Yes.
until we do that, we're seeing a downfall. I was reading last night about a Kent investigation that occurred in the 80s regarding journalism in Canada, and their recommendations, if they had gone forward, would have been a whole boom to journalism. But as it was, every single one of their recommendations were ignored. Where we used to have hundreds of newspapers available, now we're down to 70. And it's not like people, then you get the pushback, well, come on, it's print media, who does that anymore? But what people don't understand is those print medias just as easily, and because they're print media, then they're on social media, then they're actually on news stations. Perfect example, of course, is the spider himself, Murdoch. He owns huge bulk of the newspapers in Australia, and then also owns a news agency. So you have this continuous flow of lies and who to vote for and stuff. And we're seeing the same thing in Canada. Like right now, if the biggest problem the conservatives have here is that they haven't gotten it done enough for the mainstream media to get them to push them forward. But you can see it in newspapers like that are back and forth. It's just, you know what? Your job is to print and tell us what's happening. You are the fourth estate. If we do not have the fourth estate, we have no way of knowing what's happening. We have no transparency. And the thing is, all that journalism without activism is PR work. That's all it's doing. Just like Como, it was great PR work, that whole how he handled New York and all that PR. And now they're discussing the women. As tragic and horrible as that is, what about, like Mickey said, the people left in the seniors' homes? the decision to do those actions in the seniors' homes.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
why is nobody discussing that?
until Reagan killed the fairness doctrine here, I
Mhm.
grew up with news. You were not permitted to have more than one outlet in any one given, I don't know if it was
Yep,
city or state. You could not own a newspaper and magazine and radio and TV. You were not permitted to lie.
yep,
If it was an opinion show, it had to be stated as an opinion show,
yep.
not news. And excuse me. And if you had a candidate on, you had to give the opposing candidate equal time. That's what
Mhm.
I grew up with
Yep,
until Reagan came along.
yep.
Well,
And
I
that's
mean,
what I can say the same thing. Until the 80s, we started to see the change in the 80s
Oh,
between Reagan,
Reagan.
Mulroney, and Thatcher. We just watched everything start to change because articles that we would be, that were non-biased, they stated the facts. All of a sudden
Hmm.
you saw this taint that was just, is this the facts or is this somebody's bias? And that's the thing, is the obvious bias that kept coming forward is, and it got more and more and more and more until now here we are.
and that's another thing that really frustrates me in this whole controversy. Yes, it's important for the women who were assaulted by him
Mhm.
to speak their story and to get their truth out. But for some reason, we're ignoring the thousands of people who were in nursing homes sent there to die, and nothing's happening. They can't be sued. There won't be repercussions. I just wonder, when are people going to take to the street and say, I've had enough? I don't know what that is. I don't know what point that is, but it's sometimes it's up to the voters to make a change, because we can't just keep electing people. And I use this as an example every week because it's such a telling thing. You can't campaign on $2,000 checks, subsequently cut them to 1,400 and expect me not to use subtraction. You can't
Mhm.
cut $600 for just no reason and then just have MSNBC and CNN. Oh, what? Just literally ignore that
Well,
fact.
the sad thing, you talk about voting. I was arguing with people constantly who were saying, well, 1,400 is better than nothing.
Yep, I got into some arguments with people that I'm like, but he promised 2,000 may be too much. No, it's not enough.
2 trillion to the rich people. Everybody that
Exactly.
managed to go through with no problem.
Yeah, but again, that's blue MAGA. Blue MAGA is excusing everything that Biden is doing. I mean, it's
Yep.
just, and they're excusing the governor of New York too. I mean, it's this. Well, they're not Trump. Trump does not have anything to do with these issues.
Hmm.
Trump
Yep.
did not. Well, he assaulted. He has a group of women who are accusing him of assault already. So he's got his problems. But this problem, just to say, oh, well, he's not Trump. Okay. And what does that have to do with people in nursing homes dying? What does that?
It's another distraction. Think about it. That nursing home stuff came out, right? And then within a week, literally, I don't know, Mickey, Tracy, it seemed within a week, all of a sudden we started to hear like the Me Too component of these women. And yes, these women deserve to get, what they are requesting and recognition for what they've been through. Like, but again, that happened to individuals. We are talking thousands and thousands people and people's families in huge numbers. And why all of a sudden, I always see it as a bait and switch. They want you to pay attention to this because this is like, and the
It's
thing is, we
blue.
have
It's
all the proof of this. We have all the data. We have the death counts. We have the extra mortality rates. We have all of it, the excess mortality. And that's the thing is, if they reported on it and put forward all the facts, because they're all available, right? The fact that he signed the law and all those things, he would look horrendous. But instead of doing that, we're going to talk about what he did with women, which is horrendous in itself. But it wasn't a crime against humanity.
Well,
Yeah, it was
Quite
about,
literally,
Tracy
what
said,
he committed was a crime against humanity.
Tracy said it. She said, "Blue MAGA, they're as much a cult as Trump's were. They learned
Mhm.
from Trump how to deflect, constantly deflecting.
Yeah.
They learned to name call, to insult, to throw tantrums when you post a fact, even if you post it with credible links.
Yeah.
They're deflecting. Let's ignore, okay, he covered it up. Don't talk about why he had to send them there because he
Hmm.
defunded hospitals. Don't talk about the fact that he gave them the nursing homes immunity. Don't talk about the fact that they donated millions to him before he did that. Don't talk about the fact that he sent them there. The only problem the news has got is he covered it up. That's the only thing they talk about.
And see, and that is such poor journalism. It's horrendous. It's the same as like what I did with CBC when they did that article about the premiers wanting to discuss to the prime minister about federal transfer payments. My first comment back to CBC is, then let's start looking at what the provincial premiers are doing with the money. That's the thing, is enough, or do we have a fourth estate, or do we have PR firms working for the various corporations? Because
we
that's all I see.
we have PR firms working for the establishment.
Yeah.
If you think about the least controversial progressive issue, $15 minimum wage. If you just went out and said to people, can you live off of $7.25 an hour in
Mhm.
US, not Canada? I don't know what the minimum
Well,
wage.
you couldn't in Canada anymore either.
I would say I don't know what the minimum wage is.
Uh-huh.
When you tell a person, you know what, you can earn $15 an hour, why then start arguing? Well, you mean to me you're going to pay somebody $15 for flipping a burger? Yes,
Yeah.
I am. Yes. One, it's work that I couldn't do. Two, it's work I don't want to do. And three, yes, that person flipping burgers, as you call it, deserves to make a wage where they're not having to go on public assistance. So yes, I'm advocating for
And
people.
and 15 is not a livable wage. It is
No.
not a livable wage.
It's better than 7.25 though.
Yeah.
And one of the
Don't make
things
me
too is when they say, I was just when you in regards to the $15 an hour, right? Gosh, forget it, I lost my thought. But there was a point I was going to make in people that are pushing and saying it's not necessary and stuff like that. So really, so we won't let the corporation pay them $15 an hour, and they're their employee, but we're okay with subsidizing this
Mhm.
decision that the
Yeah.
corporations made. When
Exactly.
Walmart doesn't pay $15 an hour and provide benefits to their employees, who do you think pays for that? That isn't Walmart. That's our tax dollars going in to subsidize their workers so they can actually have some health care. That's their workers having to go on food stamps. That's their workers having to be in food lines, and they are allowed to do it, and we pay for it anyways. So
Yeah,
how
Mhm.
about making the corporations pay for their employees instead of everyone?
exactly. But I even hear arguments on that. I hear people say, well, Walmart's just taking advantage of the system. Are you serious? Things can't things cannot change until voters get it in their heads. I have to vote for my best interest. And let's skip the fact that they're Democrat. Let's skip the fact that they're Republican. Because yes,
Yep.
money in politics should be out. I definitely agree. But until the voter gets in their mind, you know what? This person isn't really for me. This person has none of my best interests at heart, because we keep electing these the duopoly. And neither side, if we're honest, neither side wants. The Democrats don't want a $15 minimum wage. If you
No,
think
they're
about
business owners. Of course
um
they don't. Hillary helped Walmart friggin' write the contracts
yeah,
decades ago.
exactly.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and they'll never come out and say I don't want it,
Nope.
because they know that's not going to get them elected. They
Hmm.
say what's necessary to get elected. And that's why I think it's so important that independent media like this show and other shows continue to say to people, hey, think about what it is that you're saying when you tell me, oh, well, you want somebody at McDonald's to make $15 an hour. No, I actually want them to make 35 an hour, but I know that's a little bit high for you. But we can't just keep expecting people to live where the rents are $1,000 a month or $900 a month. You got to pay your utilities and childcare, which thank goodness I don't have children because childcare is just unbelievably expensive. But the childcare workers are making minimum wage. Who's getting all that money when you're paying $150 a week for your child to be in daycare?
Well, again, it comes down to money in politics. The big corporations buying our politicians.
Yeah.
With every poll done, the vast majority of both Democratic and Republican voters want the $15. The vast majority, it's a mandate. And yet the politicians are not listening to them.
Well, I saw one Republican representative literally say, "But that'll hurt me." Well, how's it going to hurt you to do what your constituents want you? How were you elected? Again, I get back to my point. The voters that got to look at that. Well, no, let me backtrack. The progressives, because the Democrats certainly aren't going to do it, and Republicans aren't going to do it. We have to campaign and say, hey, look, this is what they did. When it came time to vote for you a raise that you deserve, they said no. Vote for us and we'll make you get that raise. We need, again, more progressives in office. Because
But again, because the DNC is bought, they're not going to back the progressives. As a matter of fact, they have put millions behind. Sometimes when you have an incumbent who's a progressive, the DNC will spend millions to back somebody who is going to fight that progressive for that seat. And without,
they would never do that.
Oh, well, was it Kentucky? Was a good example of that?
Yeah, Kentucky was the best example. Charles Booker should definitely be in the Senate. And again, that's another person that ran as a progressive. And here's what Democrats are saying. Oh, no, the nomination belongs to McGrath. She earned it. No, she said she was a Trump Democrat, which somebody explained to me what that even means. I'm like, you're going to vote for her. Okay. And now you're wondering why she got slaughtered in the elections. Gee, I wonder why.
Well, look at this past election for the House in 20. Pelosi and the DCC all financially backed the person who's challenging the incumbents, every one of the incumbents in the squad. Everyone, they both financially backed them and they backed them in the media. The squad won. Everyone in the squad won. But the DCC and Pelosi all backed the people challenging them.
And they'll keep doing it. And the thing is, and that's the biggest fight the progressives have is actually even being recognized by the party and not being attacked. Because that's the thing is, they know if you're sold, you know your soul is sold, and they do. They know they've been sold. They know the DNC is owned. The worst thing you want is somebody coming in and making it blatantly obvious. And that's the hardest thing I think the progressives have is they can't stand up and say the truth blatantly, like when they took the election from Bernie. They can't say the truth of what's going on with their own party because they'll get cut off at the knees. And we've seen this again and again.
Do you think it's time for them to leave the party then? I mean, because if I'm running as a Democrat, I wouldn't. But if I'm running as a Democrat and I'm progressive and you're constantly telling me no, why am I, what's the benefit of me? I mean, I know there's one benefit of running as a Democrat because people know when you say Democrat, there's a certain standard that has to be set. But why am I staying with a party that literally agrees with none of the ideas that I have.
Well, I'll tell you the fights I had. The people that say when we were talking about voting green or voting third party, any third party, they would say, I would support a third party if it was viable. And I would answer, how do you make a third party viable if you don't support it?
That makes
It makes no sense.
Yeah, it makes no sense. Just say
Mhm.
you don't want to vote for a third party because you don't think that, and that's a core problem. I stopped my thought because another one just came to mind. Is people ultimately want to win? They don't want to vote for some candidate that they have been told is going to lose. I mean, think about the way the media portrayed Bernie. First of all, they
Mhm.
gave Biden the nomination as soon as he declared his candidacy. It
Yep.
was his, even though he was in last place, literally, they were still like, oh, it's his to lose. It's his to lose. Bernie's out here in the lead. Then you had, you know,
That's why they brought Biden back in, because
Yeah.
they knew nobody else would. They knew nobody else would be able to. They would be able to sell somebody as well as Biden against Bernie, because they had lost
But
to
see,
Bernie.
here's what I think though. I think, and I can't prove it, but it's just a theory of mine. I think they really got a whole lot of those candidates in to split the vote and to get people to be distracted because that
Yeah.
Biden is who they wanted all along. If we could even imagine, if we just used our imaginations, if Bernie got the nomination, I don't think that the DNC would have supported him. I think they would have formed some kind of third party and gotten who they wanted. I don't think it was ever set up for him to win the nomination. I'm glad he won. I mean, I'm glad he won. He didn't win, but I'm glad that his campaigning brought up these progressive issues. But I can't even imagine if Bernie were president and if he made a mistake or did something that was just, well, first of all, I don't think he would, but I don't think that he would get the pass that Joe Biden is getting. It's
Oh,
these people,
Oh no.
he can't do anything. I'm like, are y'all serious? He cannot walk on water. He
well,
You
just
look at
would
this.
see,
water.
you
Like
would
like you
see.
said earlier with Bernie, he's the only one who fought for the $15. Now they're blaming him.
Yep. They're attacking him. And if Bernie had won, you would see such a corporate push
Oh
flush
yeah,
in the
look at what I
media.
said.
Every step the tan suit for Barack Obama would be, Bernie's mittens would be attacked. You know, that woman who made his mittens was this and this. Like, they would be going and nitpicking for absolutely anything they could find.
He eat a piece of pork, but he's Jewish. I mean,
Exactly. It would be all sorts of stuff like
idiotic
this.
thing. It's like really.
Oh yeah, and you know how they would sell it in the states where there's a huge pork farms? Well, you know he's Jewish, so he wouldn't support the pork farm. Like, they would come up with every BS. I'm allowed BS, Tracy? They
Yes,
would come up with every BS reason. And just like they're doing now, instead of looking at the fact that 6 senators voted against the $15 minimum,
eight.
it's
It was
Bernie's
eight.
fault for mentioning it.
It was eight.
It was 8, but it was 8
Because we
Democrats.
knew I
Yeah.
subtracted the six
8.
because I knew Manchin had already said he was voting against it. Cinema already said she was voting against it. It was the other 6 Democrats that kind of tagged along and nobody expected.
Well, I think Mickey nailed it, and I think it was a group call. We have to kill this. We want to kill it, but we don't want to look bad. So here you go, you 8. You go out and say no. And
But
it's just,
but don't they think that somebody's gonna run against them and be like, hey, this person had the opportunity to get a $15 minimum wage and they voted against it.
yeah, but
People
the
are
thing is
already
that
defending him.
the messaging, that's the thing, is we need a progressive to be just as blunt, just as straightforward, and
Yeah.
say, you know what? Any of my fellow Democrats who voted against this should be attacked. The thing is, wealth tax, like, actually just what popped up behind me. Wealth tax in Canada, getting behind it. Why can't we get it happening here? Why can't you get it happening in the States? The numbers in Canada aren't much different than the US. Oh, these are very few people think that we shouldn't tax the rich. So
And that's
why
the
aren't we
rich.
taxing the rich? Because their paid commercials are sitting in our government houses.
Yeah, it's like we've got to make a change. We've got to. So, audience, at this point, okay, everyone, thank you for coming back to the second half of the Progressive Queens. We talked about all the mucky muck stuff. So now we're gonna have some fun, and each of us are gonna name. I said 5 progressives, so I have my 5 progressives I'm gonna name. I'm pretty sure the other you guys don't have 5, but that's okay. Um, do you have 3, Mickey? Like 3 that you could think of off the top of your head?
Well, as soon as I get the cat off my list, because cats cannot lay anywhere unless you have something there that you need. My biggest is Robert Fitzgerald Kennedy, Attorney General under JFK, appointed by his brother. He was he fought constantly for civil rights, for equal rights. And I can't even read my writing. Every time there was an African American trying to go to a college or just registering, there would be riots, there would be hate speech, and RFK would send in the U.S. Marshals to protect those people. He was one of the ones who helped organize the march in 63. He fought constantly against, he even made a speech because the hate that he got for integrating colleges. Instead of backing down, he got on TV and made a speech and said, "You may not like it, but it's the law." And even more so, it's a moral question. It's the morality of this country that we integrate, we desegregate, and we give equal voting, educational, transportation rights to African Americans. He fought like no other in government has fought for equal rights for all.
That's an interesting choice. I know you got some more, but let's talk about that choice for a second because I didn't even think of RFK. To be honest, I thought of the more. I didn't even. To be honest, I didn't think of RFK.
Well, don't forget, I was living during that time. I was following politics. So he was probably the second one that came to mind
Now
immediately.
you have how many? So you got 2 more, right?
Yes, I
Okay.
know.
Okay.
This might be a surprise, but Harry Belafonte.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. 100%.
He too helped organize the march in 63. He got constant hate from whites. He fought against apartheid in South Africa,
Mm-hmm.
and he
Yep.
fought for African American rights in this country. He was popular as an actor, and he put himself out there.
He put himself at risk. He
Oh
did.
yeah,
Significant risk.
both his career and his life. He met with Martin Luther King Jr. the night before he was killed.
Mm-hmm. And he was also around with Malcolm a lot.
Yep.
Yeah, he was around with Malcolm a lot. Yeah,
Yep.
Eartha Kitt and some other people. When I was reading about them from our previous episode. I was actually, so I did not realize how involved Harry Belafonte was
Yeah.
in civil rights. And regarding our RFK, 100% better person than his brother. Bobby was, very much, probably one of my biggest hero worships.
Yep.
Was Bobby Kennedy, because he had everything. Let's be honest, he had absolutely everything, and was willing to fight to make sure everyone else had the opportunity to
and
do the
put
same.
himself out there. I mean, he fought against, who was it, Goldwater, who was big with
Yep.
segregation and hate and violence. Goldwater was in Alabama. He was fine with the violence of stopping people from going to college or getting on
Mhm.
public transportation. And RFK put himself out there and fought with Goldwater publicly.
Mm-hmm. And won. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Any of the,
Well,
any of the,
he was one of the biggest. Everybody gives JFK credit for writing the Civil Rights Bill in '63. RFK is the one who was the one who wrote
wrote it.
most of that. Yeah,
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
was a
It was.
lawyer. He was a
Yeah.
lawyer. He was the one who wrote that bill, the Civil
Yeah.
Rights Bill that was passed in '64.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you got one more, you said.
Okay, this one wasn't a civil rights proponent, but he was a socialist. Eugene Debs, one
Mhm.
of our earliest socialists, who was for equal rights for all, and that encompassed Black people. He ran as a socialist on the socialist platform. He even got more votes when he was in prison for being against the war. He got more votes than Nader did years later. He fought for the poor. He fought for the disenfranchised. And like I said, he ran on the socialist platform 5 times. Of course, never won, but he's often overlooked.
Mhm.
Okay, how about you, Kat?
Well, I'm just going to go with the one, and that's because he's the greatest, and that's Muhammad Ali. And I consider him, he to me was such an inspiration right from the beginning when I started to look at how people were being the separate, like when I was young, and I had to have it explained to me, well, why did Cassius Clay have to change his name to Muhammad Ali? And then I always cry when I think of him. And the risk that he put to do it. He gave up his title. He gave up everything because of what he believed in and what he knew needed to be done to help the people. And it wasn't just, it wasn't, one specific group of people. Muhammad Ali worked to help with the indigenous people. He was part of the march. He came out publicly and called out what was going on when they were sending people off to young men off to war to die. And he literally risked everything. And that to me is a true sign. It's similar to what Bernie, when Bernie stepped up and he separated himself, right? And he went independent because let's be honest, the Democrats were doing what they do, right? And Bernie did the independent thing. And that's the thing is when people are willing to stand up, it doesn't, when you stand up for what everybody agrees with, it doesn't make a difference. But when you stand up, as Ali did, and he did it at a time where, let's be honest, Black leaders were getting executed. I don't consider it a random. They were executed. They executed Malcolm X. They executed Martin Luther, and they executed Bobby.
And they assassinated
Yep.
Fred Hampton.
Yep. Yeah. And yeah, exactly. How many more people? And the thing is, for somebody to stand up like Ali did during that time and go public and risk everything, that's what always makes him the greatest in my mind. It's it's easy to stand up with somebody when everybody's agreeing with you, but to stand up and put your life, your future, your career on the line to stand up for those beliefs, that to me makes him the greatest.
That was an excellent pick. That was an excellent pick. Unusual, but excellent pick nonetheless. So, audience, I got 5, and I ranked mine because I couldn't just pick one. So I had to first pick 5. Okay, so my number 5 is, and I had to remember this, so I had my list, but I lost it, so I'm going by memory. So, audience, just please be patient with me. So the 5th progressive that I picked is a newer person to Congress. He's from, I believe, the state of California. And I'm going to get his name wrong because I never get it right. Ro Condit. Is that how he pronounced it?
Rokana.
Ro
Rakana. Yeah.
Kana. Thank you.
Kana.
I
The
picked
very first, he was the very first Justice Democrat.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. This congressman really came on my list this week because he actually said that the Democratic Party was wrong.
Mhm.
And that really stood out. Like, he actually had the nerve, in a good way, to state how wrong his party is. Nikki, you mentioned that he was the first Justice Democrat. Strong progressive. Just advocate for all the right issues. So I definitely had to put him on my list. Number four, my number four is, and I have to go, I gotta steal Mickey's pick with Eugene Debs, all reasons that she said, so I won't repeat them. So he's number four. My number three, I wanted to do this as a tie, and I all the squad is number three. Like all of them. I'm talking about Talisha, AOC, Alana,
Ilhan,
Ilhan, all
Corey.
Jamal, all of them are number three. All of them. The whole squad is number three because I've never seen, and I hope to see this more. When they say they believe something, I believe them when they say it.
Mhm.
And that's important, not because I think progressive issues are the only way, because there are some other ways, but all those other ways to me are stupid. These people stand up for what they truly believe. AOC skipping the inauguration so that she could be in a protest with workers. AOC raising $5 million for people in a state that she doesn't even live in. Cori Bush being a Black Lives Matter activist and in the streets and protesting everything that they do. Yes, they say things I'm like, okay, I don't quite agree with it, but I have the utmost admiration for the entire squad is number three.
and every one of them are not bought. They don't take corporate money.
Exactly. You just said that was going to be my other point. They're not bought.
I'm sorry.
That's
I'll
okay.
shut up.
That's personally, that's another good reason. They're not bought. And like I said, when they say something, even if I disagree with it, which is rare, I rarely disagree with them. I'm really like, okay, you came up with that from where? I wanted to put Nina Turner in there because I'm just believing she's gonna be in the squad because she's going to get elected, so she's included in there too. My number two and number one, I kept going back and forth on these two. So my number two is Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is someone who I've supported since he first ran in 2016. When I knew who Bernie Sanders was, but I always thought as a younger person that he was out there. And then when I heard him talk, I was like, you know what? He is out there, but in a good way. He says the things that I truly believe. He advocates for the $15 wage, minimum hour wage. He's for single payer health care. He's another person who, when he talks, I rarely disagree with what Bernie Sanders says. If Bernie tells me to vote for somebody, not that I'll do it, but if he doesn't tell you how to vote, he does not do that. But when he promotes someone, I'm paying attention to that person.
Yeah.
Because what he says to me as a progressive, it really, really, really matters. Even this time around, when he lost the nomination that was stolen from him twice, he campaigned for someone he didn't want. And he's consistently taking hits that he doesn't deserve to take, but he still takes them. And that speaks volumes to me. He's willing to take a hit, and he should never have gotten hit in the first place. And that's what I think that we, not as just we as in this group, but we as people need to do. We need to take hits sometimes, even though they're undeserving, to stand up for what we truly believes in, what we truly believe in. And I think he truly believes in everything he's saying.
Yep.
Only that the thing that stood out about me for Bernie is that a lot of people just love to say he's racist. I don't know where they're getting this from, but he got all these silly questions about how he's going to communicate to the Black voter. And I kept saying, did you all forget that he was literally changing to a Black woman? Did that just go past your memory?
And his policy proposals affect everybody.
Everyone.
That
And
includes Black
Black
people.
people.
And
Exactly. So when
he
I
doesn't have to. No,
yeah,
go
so
ahead.
I heard the racism comments, I'm like, you know what, DNC, y'all need to really stop. But that's why Bernie Sanders is my number 2. And my number 1, and like I said, I went 2-1. I just kept going back and forth, is Ralph Nader. Ralph Nader is to me the OG of progressives. He ran, of course, with the Green Party. I voted for him twice.
So did I. Me too.
Um,
And once I met him, and he said I was pretty. So Ralph Nader's getting the vote. But
you are. So
Um,
he knows the truth.
well, thank you. But I campaigned for both him and Sanders. But when I campaigned for Ralph Nader, I was in it to win it. I campaigned for Bernie. I was hoping we would win, but there was nothing you were going to say to me that was going to deter me from voting for him. Strong progressive. He's still active to this day. He's almost what? He's in his mid 80s, somewhere in there.
He's got to be getting up there. Holy kudos, yeah.
Yeah, he's getting up there, but he's still very active in the progressive movement. Just all around, when I think of progressive issues and I think of progressivism, Ralph Nader is just like, if he and Bernie Sanders could somehow run on a team as president and vice president, I'm telling you right now, this moment, I'm in. I don't care if they're both past 50, I don't care. Because those
Just looked it up. He's 87.
87, okay, I knew he was 85, but he's just the embodiment of progressivism. When I think of progressivism, Ralph Nader is who I think of. So that's my top 5, and I hope we can discuss some more people that we think are inspiring to progressives, because again, we need to get these progressive issues out there so people know. People know, but we need to get them in front of the voting public to say, yes, people, there is an alternative.
Yep.
You do have a better choice.
And that's with both sides. The thing is, yeah, exactly. The thing is, we've said it before, separate the personal issues. And I consider the personal issues, i.e. what I do with my body, my religion I follow, etc., and go back to the core issues of the society or community, right? And when you do that, and like we've all discussed the numbers, and you guys know it better than I do, 60-70% of people want Medicare for all. How many?
Oh, no.
What are the numbers? How many?
It's somewhere around 80-something% for Democratic voters and 70-something% for Republican voters.
Okay, that's Medicare for all. And the $15 minimum wage. What are the numbers on that?
Much higher. Much higher on both sides.
Now, this is what I would, in my little perfect world, is have people voting, like we discussed this before, not voting against their own interests. And one of the things is, maybe we need to start, are there any Republican progressives? I know I'm, pushing the boundary on there, but I'm sure there are. I'm sure there are people that disagree with abortion for themselves, but agree with Medicare for all, agree with $15 minimum wage. The thing is, we're arguing mice nuts when actually we're all starving to death and nobody's paying attention. And that's one of the things that, the bar has been so lowered. Like Tracy pointed out, as long as they're telling me the truth, as long as, you know what? I've had people having to give me, all of us in our lives have had people having to give us bad news, or we've had to deliver it. And we all know if you tell the truth, then you can move forward. If you hide it, lie, then nothing gets done, nothing gets fixed. And that's what we keep consistently see with these politicians. And we see it being fed to people, right? You watch people in their TV, their social, like, because I don't do regular TV, haven't for decades. But when I watch, I went, well, why are they showing this? It's really not important. It's a bad character trait. Oh, don't tell that person the truth, or it's okay as long as they never why are we advocating for these sort of things? Why are we, it's like the bar on efficacy got dropped to a point where you're like, literally, I've had people say, well, if you tell them that, then they won't buy, or they won't do that. But wouldn't it be better if they bought or looked at it and knew all the truth behind it? But no, it doesn't seem to be. Nobody puts any value in it anymore.
And that's
Blue
why
MAGA is getting so angry whenever we criticize Biden. And my line is always, you can't fix what you won't admit is broken.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. But the problem is that people don't, when it's their person in office, everything is just, look how the media portrays it, especially MSNBC, especially CNN. Oh, everything's okay now. No.
Yeah, Biden's elected. Everything's.
It's going to go back to normal.
What's changed? What's changed? Tell me physically in the last, from 6 months ago to now. What has literally changed?
One person was named Donald, one other person's named Joe. That pretty much was changed.
And going back to normal means going back to 500,000 homeless people, tens of millions without health care.
No, but Mickey, we have the Affordable Care Act. That's so great.
Yeah, poor people, poor neighborhoods getting less funding in schools. That's what our normal was. That was normal. We want to go back to that.
Well, the thing is, they've been pushing for destroying the education system from the word go. One of the best things is to destroy the education system. And believe me, they would love to do the same in Canada, and they've attempted to multiple times. Thankfully enough, our teachers' unions are pretty darn strong, even though that sometimes I question what they're doing. But no, it's a constant. They're attacking back at the foundation, because the thing is, if a child doesn't understand what they're being taught fully and has the critical thinking, then you can just push them wherever you want them. You can make them go in whatever direction. A great book I read about that was by James Clavell, called Children's House. And he wrote it because his son came home. They were living in America at the time. And this is the author, James Clavell, who wrote Shogun, King Rat, and various other books. And what bothered him, his son came home and he goes, Daddy, I learned how to recite the Pledge of Allegiance today. But he, of course, couldn't say the words completely because he was quite young. And James said, oh, okay, then recite it to me. And so he tried and stumbled his way through. And so then, okay, now you've done it. And he goes, now you have to give me a dime. And he goes, why is that? And he goes, because the teacher told me that if I say it, then my mom and dad, my parents should give me a dime. And he goes, okay, now what does pledge mean? Kid didn't have a clue. What does allegiance mean? Didn't know.
Wow.
Now you have somebody swearing to swearing, and that's an oath, right? That's something that should be taken incredibly seriously, but they don't know what they're doing. They literally have no concept of what pledging means or what the words mean. And so you have them reciting rote. It's the same as you know, those Trumpers, when you see them at the thing and reciting back what he's saying to them, not realizing that what he's doing is against them as well. It's going to hurt them as well.
It's indoctrination, pure and simple. And
Yep.
God, I don't want to cut you off, but this is also Women's Month, and
Oh, yes.
the third Saturday in March when we tape, because we are on Tuesdays, we're going to each come with a couple of women who we think are really progressive. I have 4 prepared, because that's just how I roll. So this week, I wanted to talk about a woman who I think is strongly progressive. I know she was the Hillary supporter, but when I think of Gloria Steinem, I always think,
Mhm.
wow. Everything about her to me is just wow. She was marching with Andrew Davis. She was advocating for women's health. There's nothing, I'm not going to say you can't say anything negative about her, because we all have our negatives. But wow, she's really a woman who I would not want to be like because I'm me, but I aspire to be somewhat like her.
Mhm.
Gloria Steinem is definitely someone who I highly, highly, highly admire.
She put her again. She was somebody else, because what it's hard, and this is where I have a hard time dealing with some of the young people, is they say, well, you guys all let it happen. You let it happen. And I'm saying, no, we didn't. We had voices that were screaming out against the disparities and all of the various problems in societies in the 50s and 60s and 70s. We were yelling loud and strong. We were doing well until the 80s. And the 80s was one of the things that literally, you know, it was, and you had people like Gloria Steinem coming out, and, you know, and we had entertainers, Buffy St. Marie. We had lots of people that used their platforms to give the messages. What's happened now is they realized that those platforms were causing grief. The corporations who own the platforms then, our media companies, realized that their platforms were possibly going to be their demise. So what did they do? They took away people like Gloria. They tried to take away Gloria Steinem. They tried to take away
Look at
these other BS reasons on why we shouldn't follow them or why they're a bad person. And
look at Jane
strength
Fonda.
that she took to stand up was phenomenal.
Jane Fonda came out against the Vietnam War, and
Yep.
50 years later, 50 years, they're
Yeah.
still damning her for it. 50 years,
Yeah.
and she's not forgiven.
I got in an argument with the relative like that, but I'm like, but what she was saying about the war, she was right. She was right about what are you talking about? That was before either of us. It's like, oh no, she disrespect. I'm like, how did she disrespect people? You don't disrespect Ali. He literally got his championship belt taken away from him because he wouldn't serve.
Yep.
Well,
He gave it up.
I'm like, he's different because he's black, or he's different because he's male and black. I get you. People have said that about Jane Fonda, and I'm like, but she was right. Everything she said about the Vietnam was right. She's not on my list. So I'm thinking maybe I should put her. But yeah,
Ahem.
no, never mind. That's Kat's choice. That's Mickey's choice. So she'll do that the third Saturday in March. So guys, I thank you all both for sticking with me through this one. Stay around for a bit, but audience, remember the show always premieres on Tuesdays. Like, share, subscribe, comment, and be sure to register for the event that I have going on June 24th. It's a little, not fundraiser, but awareness fundraiser that I'm doing. So I would appreciate your support. We'll see you all next week, and have a great day, evening, and week. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.